Clive finally got nerfed. The character's in a position where if you genuinely enjoy playing the character, he's still really good, but a couple of his really annoying moves were finally toned down, and one of them is actually big enough to where I had to re-record the majority of this video because the change was so big. If you clicked on this video, it's clear it's because you want a better understanding of Clive as a character, his game plan, and how to beat this character. Clive is, without a shadow of a doubt, probably the easiest character in Tekken 8 by a general philosophy design by Bamco. They wanted to get Final Fantasy players into Tekken with this collaboration, so it would only make sense to get non-fighting game players into a fighting game. You would make a character really easy. The problem with making a character really easy is it makes it seem like he's almost brain dead, which he kinda is in certain senses. And playing against it makes it feel like you're beating your head against a wall, but not anymore. In this video, first, I'm going to cover the two most important moves that were changed with this patch, what those changes are, and how it affects your gameplay and your game plan when fighting Clive. After, I'm going to cover the general unsafe moves of this character that you cannot let him get away with. These are going to be a combinations of punishable moves on block and strings that you can duck. Then finally, I'm going to wrap it up covering one of his stances, this dash stance forward, because I truly believe that his flying dragon stance really doesn't have that much other than like this effect. You get a low crush effect and some okay knowledge check moves. Remember, like I say with every video in this series, this is a beginner's guide to start your journey on the path of getting a very high win rate with this character. Not an instant you're never going to lose against this character. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get right into the video. The first thing that I want to cover, and I feel like is the most important to cover for anybody who doesn't know, just a couple of days ago as this video is going live, patch 1.11 point something, I think, went live, and it made changes to two characters, Clive and Heihachi. We're not making a tutorial on Heihachi, and Clive is the one that we want to focus on. There are two moves that got nerfed that we really want to pay attention to, and I'll cover those now. First things first is Clive's parry, this move right here. The active frames are still the same, but the only thing that has changed is the recovery frames for the move has been slowed down, or technically increased so you can't spam them nearly as much. And so if your opponent whiffs, you can get a significantly bigger punish if you're far away, or if you take a little longer to realize that he's parrying than you probably should. The next move that I want to talk about is probably the biggest change and the most important change to Clive's toolset, that if you take nothing away from this video, you gotta take away that this move is negative now. Forward 1+2 is now -12 instead of -8, so this is punishable. Make sure to punish this with your beefiest punisher that you got, 12 frame, or if you have a different punisher that does more damage or wall splats, go for it. Additionally, if you dodge the first hit, you can also sidestep either side the second hit. To actually step this move without getting clipped, it's a little harder than sidewalking. Do know that this move does not realign unless you try and hit him, and then of course your hurt box will be extended, yada yada yada. I've covered a whole video on this before about why you might be getting clipped when sidestepping, but do know you can sidestep this move, you just have to do it at like the very ending part of the first slash. You do it any later, it will not come out. Like that. I stepped way too late, and did not make it. But if I step there, no problem. Sidewalking this move is significantly easier just because this move, again, is very linear now and does not realign. Even if I'm walking, like, way before he's, like, hit his move, like, he still won't hit me. Keep this in mind for your game plan and consider sidewalking Clive a little bit more now unless he's using a lot of sidestep tracking heavy moves. But if you come across a Clive who is just spamming this move a ton and you really want to punish it with a launch instead of a 12 frame punisher, you can step this move very easily. It's extremely linear now. I wanted to throw in an editor's note here real quick because I completely forgot to cover back 1+2 here. His power crush that is insanely good, and you will see a lot. This move has always been, since the character has came out, -14. So you could still get really good punishes out of it if you just block it. However, really cool thing now is there still is a decent bit of pushback. However, sometimes when you'd get hit by this move like at tipping range, sometimes you would not be able to punish because his recovery frames would be too quick. They've significantly added, I think by like 5 or 6 frames, the recovery frames. So if you have any long-reaching moves that are 14 frames or quicker, you will be able to use them now if they were consistently inconsistent, if that makes any sense. Just block and punish or sidestep and punish. Just don't get hit by this move. If you do, you're gonna get wall broken and a lot of damage is going to get done. 5 damage than what it used to be if it was the powered up version though, so hey, at least that's a good thing. Next up, I want to talk about stances, and again, like I said specifically, I want to talk about this stance more than anything. I want to go ahead and mention that in this stance, when he is flying, he does have a low crush effect, where any moves that's a low that he does, it will just completely go under it, but mids and highs will still hit him and will float him for a combo. So if you see a Clive player trying to do this stance at any point whatsoever, he does not have a power crush from this move. Majority of his moves are extremely slow, and that's really about it. There's not really much to the stance. It's more, like I said, of a knowledge check or to transfer from a different stance or for combos. So for the sense of learning how to play against the character, it's not really important to know the stance too much, in my opinion. The stance that is crazy is this stance, and the first move that I want to talk about specifically, Phoenix Stance 4 is a 15 frame -1 on hit, +1 on hit for you, obviously. Low, that is really, really good. It seems extremely linear just from watching the animation, but I struggle severely to try and walk this. I've tried multiple times to walk this to the right. I cannot. And only when actually like locking and crazy am I actually able to like step this move like consistently to the left. And even then, it's not even really consistently. It's just kind of like whenever it feels like it. And the fact that you really only see a couple of frames of him going invisible for a second and then he dashes forward, it's really hard to know when you need to side walk because you can't even really sidestep this move. I've tried like that and it's possible, but like I said, you have to be absolutely on your A game. And that's just in an offline scenario. That's what I've been talking about. Rollback delay in frames in ranked, or problems with like buggy connection, or even just genuinely trying to learn the matchup in general. It's a move that I genuinely would not recommend trying to step because just about everything in this stance tracks you except for Hell Sweep. So walking against this character when he's doing that move is just kind of dangerous in general. His mids are extremely dangerous, and the mids that you really want to care about in the first place are either tracking to both sides and safe on block so you can't do anything about them, or are -13, -14 when you block the entire string, or -7 if you only block the first part of the string, which again we'll talk about these in a minute. But it's not really generally as kind of a game plan. It's better to either make big reads against Clive or try and like whiff punish him, like try and be like at this distance and bait out Phoenix 4 so you can get like a launch out of it, because again, the sidestepping is so insanely inconsistent with this move, and with the fact that it's counter hit confirmable as well, and they're +13, so they can get either a WoW Rising 1-2 or just a 1+2 out of it, which is a heat engager. It's just really, really dangerous in my opinion to step this stance in general, and you should want to just punish accordingly based on when he's not using the stances or when you've blocked the stances, because once he does his kind of little bit of mix-up that he has out of his stance, he loses steam quickly, and you can very easily pick out opportunities when you can duck high strings or step certain moves. Phoenix 1+2 is that very scary tracking mid that I was telling you that he has from Phoenix Stance. This tracks to both sides, is a mid, and leaves you at +7, so it allows you to act. Really, the only thing that you need to know about this move is do not let them try and take their turn back unless they're trying to go for a power crush bait. In that sense, step and punish or block and punish again. Next up is Phoenix Stance 2, and this has two different variations. It has 2, the first hit, and 2-2, the confirmed hit. I believe you can actually confirm this if this is a good player. However, can you step this actually? If you see the Clive player using this move a lot, you can technically sidestep this move right, and I believe maybe left. The problem with stepping this move comes from this second hit right here, which pretty much tracks. So you can get around this third hit, but you're not getting around the second hit. And since the move is -13 if you block the entire string, just block. The first part of the string is +7 for you, so you should be able to get your turn back, and the second part is negative enough where you can punish and be able to get extra damage and continue your turn. So again, don't try and step this move unless they are just really trying to hit confirm Phoenix 2-2 a lot, and you can guarantee that you can get that sidestep into a punish before he gets the second one out, but it's again very, very difficult and not recommended. Next up for moves in Phoenix Stance, we have one of the only moves that you should consider stepping if you see a Clive player doing doing this a lot. Phoenix Stance 1 can be stepped from both sides at pretty much just about any range and is extremely easy to step. If you don't step it though, it is plus 14. So those of you fortunate enough to have a 14 frame standing launcher or good enough execution to electric, definitely punish this. Next up, I want to talk about Clive's Hell Sweep. There's two separate variations to this. It doesn't really matter too much when it comes to learning the matchup and how to punish it, but just for the sake of understanding, Phoenix 3-2 is going to be the wall break one, which looks like that, and Phoenix 1+2 is going to be a floor break that looks like that, which gains stack to his meter. Unlike most Hell Sweeps, Clive is actually weak to both sides when you step this move. I would personally suggest stepping right just because you can step it, and if you try and step left, sometimes you will get clipped, but as you can see, you still can very easily step it both sides. If you don't feel like sidestepping though, and he's just throwing it out a bunch, it is minus 26 for the Clive, so it's absolutely Hell Sweep punishable like everything else. Make sure you get a good juicy launcher for this. The final move that I want to talk about in Phoenix Stance is Phoenix 3+4, which is that move right there. This is probably his best move from this stance. As you could probably imagine based on the animation, this move does low crush any lows and is plus 7 on block. The good news about this move though is it's extremely slow, and if you get him when he is on the pole, you can float him for a combo. This move more or less is kind of the very plus on block move that either Clive start using right away if they expect you to respect it, or if they've conditioned you enough to stop pressing, then obviously this move can be very scary. This does wall splat and break any walls in the background as well, so you need to be very careful of this move if your back is to the wall. As you can also see, there is tracking properties to this as well, so it really is just if you get hit by this, you just have to take 7 frames. Do not ever press on this move unless you have a very specific power crush, hop kick if he usually does a low directly after. Unless there's a specific read in mind, it's not a good idea to try and press on this move. Finally, before we end the video, I wanted to go ahead and give you 8 examples of the most common moves that you're going to see, how to punish them, and general strategies to get around them. So if you see anybody spamming any of these specific moves, which you absolutely will, you can take into account what I've told you here to be able to form a game plan and beat that Clive player. Let's go. First things first is while running 2. This move right here. This is like the most common move that I see. If Clive hits you with this move on block, he transitions into his stance at plus 14. There is not a lot that you can do, especially do not sidestep. Do not try to sidestep. You will not have enough frames to sidestep majority of the moves. I don't even think you will have the frames to step any of the moves. Unfortunately, if you get hit by this, there's one of two things that your options are. You either mash to try and get rid of any options that's not Phoenix 1, since it's a power crush, or you just wait and you punish whatever it is. With this move, unfortunately, this kind of is one of Clive's biggest mix-up tools. You kind of do get put into a 50-50, and you have to be able to read the Clive in order to understand what he is most likely to do next. Good players obviously will mix it up a lot more and it'll be significantly harder, but if you're at anywhere that's Tekken King or below and a Clive player just keeps doing while running 2 into Hell Sweep, you should probably block the next Hell Sweep. Outside of that, because it's a giant running sword move, it can be stepped extremely easily, as you can see. And I feel like I did very close to an instant while running, definitely not a full instant, but very, very close, and definitely as fast, if not faster than what you should be seeing in other ranked matches. This move reaches extremely far, with full screen almost hitting me. A lot of Clive players will use this move and Phoenix to just try and get in. While Clive is extremely good at just playing like a back kind of like poking zoner type game, if you have the health lead and you back up on him, his approachable tools are extremely linear and can allow you to sidestep him for great damage. Definitely sidestep while running 2 if you're far away from him. Next, throwing in an extra move, because I totally forgot to add this and it's extremely important, I want to talk about back 2 because it's another move that he can go into stance from. He's plus 6 here, so it's not as nearly as bad as while running 2, thank God. But it's still going to be extremely hard to step the majority of stuff in this stance. Back 2 normally is high, so if you see the Clive player using a lot of back 2 at like this range, you can always duck and just while standing launch punish this. Whether you're pressing or not, if back 2 connects with you, Phoenix 1+2 is guaranteed. So this move is still scary and you want to watch out for this. He is still plus 6 though, so try and read the next mix-up and punish accordingly. Commonly, this is a move that a lot of people will try and retaliate on, though, so the good thing is if he does try and do Phoenix 1 for a power crush to stop your retaliation, you can step this move to both sides just like we talked about before. As long as he is +6 or under, you will be able to step his power crush move. However, do keep in mind he does have other safe mids that you can interrupt with jabs, but again, similar to how Reina plays, you do have to kind of play around that power crush and decide accordingly if you should be stepping, waiting to punish, or interrupting. Next, I want to talk about 4-4, this move right here. And the reason why I want to talk about 4-4 is simply because you can go into stance from it. And if you can go into stance from a move, chances are people are going to be using it, which they do. This is in a lot of combos as well. You'll see a lot of people try and do this, and then run up and try and get that as well. The reason as to why I'm showing you this move and showing you the combo specifically is because, one, that combo is extremely difficult to do and you will see people dropping it. So if you do recover quick enough and they're still trying to do this high, you can tech roll and wake up crouched and wait for that high and punish accordingly. If he's using it just in neutral though, just duck it and punish. Great thing about Clive stances is no matter what, even if he holds forward, if the second hit to any string that usually goes into heat does not connect, he will not go into it. So you won't get like a situation where you duck him and then try and punish and he does like a power crush or anything like that. That won't happen. Just simply duck and punish. Another move with just about identical properties of what we just talked about before is the down forward 1-2 extension. Down forward 1 is a great move on Clive and a lot of people use it, especially since you can go into stance just like we talked about. However, as you can probably see already, you can duck the move, and like I already said, it won't transition into stance, and he is extremely slow to recover. He is actually so negative on his recover too, that if you don't have a good enough while standing punisher, you can just duck and just also stand punish as well if you have like electric or anything else that gets a lot of damage. Next up, I want to talk about while rising 4 and the extension into Phoenix again, because again, it's another situation where he can transition to stance. I also see this very commonly used. People will use down 2 into while rising 4 into Phoenix stance. Hell, I've used it plenty of times, even in high-ranking games, and it still works great. One thing to note about what I just said, though, the down 1 into while rising 4 extension, because we are at +6, like I told you before, technically the Clive player is at +6, and if you're playing against him, you're at -6. You can step any power crush and interrupt any other move in this stance. Except for Phoenix 4, which crushes and counter hits, so you do need to be careful about that move in that. But outside of that, any situation where people are doing this, kill them for it. Also, interestingly enough, if they do hit us with while rising 4, again, we're only -6, so it applies to the same information that I told you before about sidestepping his power crush, etc., etc. But if we block it, we're actually +5. So definitely don't let him get away with anything here. Keep in mind that if you are quick enough because of the frames, you can punish with any sort of 10-frame punisher. I'm unsure of how many frames you have until the power crush is active, so that's going to be up to you to be able to do your due diligence and practice what you can lab with it. But again, you're +5, +6, you can step the power crush, and 10 frames will guarantee you punish anything, except for, again, Phoenix 4, since it crushes highs. Talked about it already, but I want to cover this again. Down 1 is a very, very, very annoying move, and is very similar to down 2 for Dragunov. This move can be sidewalked, as you can see, both ways. It's kind of linear, actually, unlike Dragunov's down 2. It doesn't really have too much pseudo tracking, so don't really worry too much about this move kind of like locking you down from your side steps, and it has very, very, very weak range, at least compared to Clive's other moves. That being said, though, it is -13, so Eddie Kazuya players, that's your time to absolutely launch that. And anything else should still be able to get at least a decent, juicy 13-frame while standing punisher, or 12 if you don't have a 13-frame. There's only really 2 things that you need to worry about with down 1. The main setups that I've seen is, like we've talked about already, down 1 into while rising 4 Phoenix stance, and down 1 into full crouch down forward 2. Both of these lows really are not really anything too big of a deal to be afraid of. Both down 1 and down forward 2, respectively. They're great low pokes to be able to be annoying, but again, if you have any sort of hop kick, anything that crushes lows, or sidesteps, you can sidestep both of these moves. Down 2 does actually have significantly less range than what you would think for how big of a sword this guy has, so don't really be afraid too much of this move. Again, most of the time when you're going to be seeing down 2 or down forward 2 full crouch is after this move, And finally, for the last thing that I wanted to cover the 2 lows that you absolutely need to punish if you block them. This one that's coming up is down forward 3 1+2. This is a snake edge. It can be seen. It's 29 frames, 29 to 30 frames. You need to be able to react to this, especially since there's a lot of people who are not used to Clive matchup just yet, and even at high ranks, I'm seeing people getting hit by this move. Definitely, if there's only a couple of things to take away, one of the things that you need to take away is to be able to get used to blocking this move. It is so much time that you have to block this, and it's minus 26 for the Clive. You get half of his health bar taken away for a move that you should be able to be blocking in the first place. Do not let him get away with this move. Finally, the last move that I wanted to talk about here, and probably one of the most annoying moves, is going to be down back 4, this move right here. It's 19 frames and +4 on hit, so you're definitely not going to be reacting to this move, unfortunately. The great news about this move, though, it is minus 18, so you need to punish this with any high damaging while rising moves that you have that can obviously lead to a launch. I see a lot of people getting confused by the animation because of how insanely negative it is. There's no stagger to it. So I see a lot of people punishing this with something just like a WoW Rising 4, or like a 1-3, or anything else that's like not nearly as much damage as you could be getting out of this move. This is minus 18. You can launch this, and you absolutely should launch this. This move tracks, however, as well, so you need to be careful trying to sidestep because they can lock you down for this. If they're using this as their kind of main sidestep tracking move, you can try and sidestep block low either side when trying to decide your course of action for playing against a Clive player. But again, obviously, keep in mind he has things like down forward 2 and stuff. Honorable mention as well, since I never mentioned it for some reason. Down forward 2 is plus 13 or minus 13 for the Clive, so punish it accordingly. Clive is a very simple to play but very complex to play against character, and by all means this did not cover everything that you need to know about the character, but it did cover actually significantly more than what I originally was going to cover in the first place for this video. I'm not really going to cover his bar meter because I really don't think that the majority of his bar is anything crazy. Like, you have 1-4. The only time that you're really going to be seeing much of his bar is if you're seeing somebody trying to use like 1-4 to try and like bait something out, like maybe you've seen in my videos if you've seen me play Clive, or just as a combo ender. You're not really going to be seeing this in much else. He does have a heat smash that he can use from his Phoenix stance that leaves him at +8. And will pretty much give him an entire stack of bar. Nothing about frame data or anything changes based on the different types of bars. The only thing that'll change is if you get hit by it, it'll do more damage. But outside of that, it's pretty much just the same thing and is just, he'll use his heat. Like I said though, this covers pretty much the majority of everything that you need to know to kind of start building a fundamental baseline of what this character is and how to play against him. And after watching this video, you definitely should have a lot of homework of things to practice and things to start looking out for. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like it, consider liking, subscribing, and commenting down below what else you'd like to see. This video was a lot longer than it was supposed to be and was also pushed back a day, so I apologize for that, but there is just so much to cover with this character because he has so much utility. Again, I really feel like I only scratched the surface when covering this character, but it's really hard to make a character guide that is concise, not 30 minutes long, and covers everything, and is able to be good for beginners, experienced players, and middle ground players alike. As always, guys, thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate it, and as always, I will see you guys in the next one.